Hello everyone, and welcome to the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. This is round number 1 from Silverstone. My name is Connery Maddock, and I'm joined by the one, the only Mr. Paul Smith for this afternoon's broadcast. We are very pleased that you're able to join us here for yet another championship that Porsche have decided to bring us in the esports world here. This time it is a very national competition. Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. Thank you very much to all of our production crew for putting this on as well. But Paul, this is shaping up to be an absolutely fantastic season given the absolute star-studded roster that we have coming into this.
Yeah, the level of competition is absolutely sensational. I mean, I don't know what's happened. There we go, I've got my background back. But yeah, the level of competition is absolutely sensational with what we've got here. An absolutely stacked grid. We've got World Championship drivers. We've got drivers who have previously been in World Championships. We've got a couple of the Porsche Carrera Cup GB drivers in here as well. A real mix of talent, and it'd be good to see them out there on track today.
Yeah, it's going to be brilliant to see. It's, you know, fantastic amount of talent here in the UK when it comes to motorsports, and esports, you know, is also included in that as well. So it's fantastic to see all these drivers out there competing, like you said, both from the professional esports world, but also a couple of drivers from this series is equivalent in the real world as well. So it's just fantastic to see those drivers racing together on the same racetrack. We have Will Martin and Josh Webster here, the real-life Porsche GB drivers. It's fantastic to see, but you've also got the schedule up on screen for you now. We start off here this week for the first round at Silverstone. We head to Alton Park for round number 2, and then we hop towards Donington, Snetterton. Then we go across the channel and we head to Le Mans for a special event right in the middle of the season before heading back here in Britain for Donington, Silverstone and Brands as our finale.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Alton Park because that's one of my personal favourite tracks there. But a really good mix and match of circuits. Snetterton using the 200 layout, so much more. It's a shorter layout, it's a faster layout, so that's going to be providing some interesting racing. But to finish off on the Grand Prix loop at Brands Hatch, as one of the all-time great tracks in the UK, it's certainly going to bring us tremendous racing.
Yep, it will do. So there's the rundown of the season, but let's take a closer look at where we are at for these racing events this afternoon. The Silverstone GP layout, of course, it really needs no introduction here. Fantastic circuit, very power dependent, very draft dependent circuit as well in places. It was even more so before the introduction of the arena section a good couple of years ago at this point, but it's definitely not a strange track to these drivers, especially considering the vast majority of them you know, have been born and bred here in Britain, and this is very much ingrained in the culture.
Absolutely, it's the home of British motorsport. That's what it likes to call itself, and it certainly is. It's a tremendous facility in Silverstone. Will give us great slipstreaming opportunities and plenty of overtaking opportunities. So definitely going to give us some tremendous action here in today's event. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yep, I am as well. Just to give you a little bit of a rundown as far as the format is concerned. Well, if you are a fan of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, then it looks similar, but it's not exactly the same. We have 20 minutes of open qualifying, which has actually just about got itself underway. So drivers will be able to complete as many laps as possible, as they want to, excuse me, in those 20 minutes. And then we'll have the grid set for race number 1. 25 minutes. Both of these races are going to be 25 minutes here today, but race 2 will have a reverse grid on the top 6. So that will just add a little bit of spice to that final race.
Certainly will. We're used to seeing a little bit of an inverted grid in the World Championship that we had start yesterday, but here, slightly smaller reverse grid. We've got a smaller grid, but it's still a very, very stacked grid. 27 drivers are going to be competing here today, but open qualifying, where you can put in as many laps as you like, is a different approach to qualifying than what we're used to seeing, especially from a World Championship level, and that means that they're able to slipstream each other as well, able to get a slipstream from somebody else, so we could see some really quick qualifying times here today.
Yeah, there are a couple of drivers that do have team associations running with their sim racing team on the day-to-day, the likes of Red Bull Racing Esports and Apex Racing Team, to name but a few. But there are some of the drivers here competing today. They've set up their webcams so we can see the live reaction with their steering wheel and their faces as well, just in case something dramatic happens, and it just really brings that human element into esports.
Certainly does give us a good perspective, and it also really helps build these drivers to really show that they've all got the talent there, and they're all focused. You can see that focus in the face of those drivers there. So really they've got a great setup. They've got the ability there. It's now all about getting those lap times in here in qualifying, but also then in the race really going to push on, and it will be intense racing here today.
It will be, because that slipstream, that draft, which is so famous in these cars, at least on the Porsche Carrera Esports Super Cup side of things, keeping everyone together, keeping everyone in close contention. It's a recipe for some very intriguing racing indeed. But we are in qualifying right now. We're riding on board with Sebastian Job. Of course, had a lot of success in 2020, perhaps the most success of anyone in sim racing on the Porsche side of things ever. And Sebastian's looking to perhaps get himself another title in his hands at the end of the season.
Yeah, he's focused on that. Didn't have the best of days yesterday, but he's really focusing himself on this here today. Decided to bail, take to the pit lane. He's not happy. He wants to get himself some fresh tyres. So that will see him on pit road. But drivers out on track now. As we say, Sebastian Job is your current qualifying leader. There's Jamie Fluke that we're seeing coming across the line. He's starting another lap through Abbott into Farm. Tricky corner, you need to feather your throttle through there. Then onto the brakes for Village. Be careful not to lock up a wheel here. Tight right-hander, then even slow it down even more for the loop. Tight left-hander, and opens up to the second part of it, which is Aintree, of course named after the horse racing course in the Liverpool area, where they held some of the British Grand Prix in the past. Down into Brooklands, you really need to hook over that curb there, like you saw there, and then Luffield. You can take different lines. You can either hug it or do like Jamie's done there, V off the hairpin, up over the curbs. You'll see them cut right across the curbs here at Woodcut, and then down past the old start and finish straight here into Cops Corner, one of the most famous views in all of motorsport when we're going to be off board. Be careful not to run too wide there, you will get yourself an off-track penalty. And then into Maggots, Beckett, right, left, slowing down all the way through. Right again, you have to slow it down even more. Be careful not to cut across that inside curb too much. And then Chapel onto the hanger straight. Absolutely flat out, you're pressing the accelerator as hard as you can all the way down the straight. Stop, it's quite an open corner, but it's a tricky corner. You've got to get your line right through here. Clip your apex right, get on the power, use the curb on the outside there into, oh well, I was going to say into the Vale, but unfortunately for us, Jamie Fluke has decided he wants some new tyres.
Yeah, so not entirely confident on the pace in terms of that lap, so you might as well dive down on towards pit lane and try and get a fresh set of rubber on that car. But we are now on board with Kevin Ellis Jr., currently resides in P4 here in the qualifying order. Still plenty of time to go left in the session, so it's not a do-or-die moment just yet. He's heading his way through the exit of the club corner. Across the line he goes, and just waiting for that lap time to come through. I don't think it was a valid one. I think it was an out lap there, Paul. So Kevin Ellis Jr. on a fast lap now. You can just see he's laser focused. And something I noticed, a lot of drivers actually are going for, you see who's wearing glasses there and the yellow tint. Some drivers love the anti-glare and the reduced blue light glasses that you can get. So it's always something that's intrigued me because I see so many drivers going for them now.
What a moment! He's abandoning the lap, and quite rightly he abandons the lap there. That was a big moment through Aintree. When I'm not on broadcasts, I actually use those glasses as well. I really do find that it helps. It just reduces the tiredness, I've found. So, again, other people don't like them, but some do. But Graham Carroll, we're looking at right now, is behind his teammate Sebastian Job as they come across the line. And they should be on a flying... no, they're going to be on their out lap there. So this is going to be their flying lap here as they're going to Abbey.
Yeah, so Graham Carroll here has a little bit of slipstream from Sebastian Job in front of them. So that's his Red Bull Racing Esports stablemate. So these are the qualifying little strategies that are going on right now, Paul. Those that have friends inside the session have the opportunity to get themselves a little bit of help from each other, and I think that's what's going on here. Sebastian Job selling his fast lap early in qualifying, and now for the latter stage of qualifying, it looks like he's going to return the favour to Graham Carroll and get him a fast time as well. But both of those drivers, P1 and P2 at the moment, and they've got quite a considerable gap over Pete Berryman in P3.
Yeah, that's it's not an insurmountable gap, but Pete is going to have to hope that he gets a better lap time in there than what he's got at the moment. And I can tell you, Graham Carroll, I'm just looking at his split times. He's there or thereabout with what he's done as a personal best, but he's not really getting the lap time that he would expect at the moment. We'll see how things go as we head on through. So, again, it's just not quite working out for him. I don't think actually Pete Berryman's that far behind these two either, so I think he's trying to sneak a slipstream from these two, as in fact, they're both abandoning the lap. They're not happy with the lap. There goes Pete, and he's not happy as well. So they're all trying to, a little bit of shenanigans going on in here, trying to give each other slipstreams. And Pete Berryman's, look at him there, he's just loitering with intent, trying to get a slipstream off the two of them, but we've got more drivers coming down. This is the problem when you get a slipstreaming track.
Yeah, fast cars coming, so they need to get it sorted pretty soon, otherwise they'll be impeding the laps of the drivers behind. The likes of Fraser Williamson, Liam McNish are all coming up on this one, but it looks like they have picked up the pace now. But yeah, I'm just reminded of Monza shenanigans in the real world with the draft situation. But 8 minutes left to go here in qualifying. Still plenty of laps to get under your belts here in this situation. Perhaps maybe 2 or 3 more flying laps can be worked out here, Paul?
Potentially. I mean, I'm just having a look at the track temperature at the moment. It's 41 degrees Celsius, so it is quite a warm track. And they will drop off, will the tyres, in terms of the performance after about 2 laps or so. So really, you only get about 2 laps. And in fact, Graham Carroll has let Pete Berryman by, so Carroll isn't happy, and Berryman's going to carry on there. But yeah, the tyre performance, you're only really going to get 2 flying laps, and then you'll have to bring it in, get a new fresh set of tyres. If you're not happy with your lap time now, get yourself onto pit road here, get yourself some fresh tyres, and give you one last chance.
Could be the course of action that many drivers will take, coming towards the final couple of minutes of this session. Across the old pit straight they come, down into that very fast right-hander of Copse Corner. Careful with the off-tracks coming through there. If iRacing deems that you've extended the track limits, it will give you an incident point, and it will invalidate your qualifying lap. There's someone getting well out of the way of a couple of drivers coming through Maggots and Beckett's there, but you always have to be conscious of those track limits. You have to know where and how, by how much you can push some of these exits.
Kevin Ellis Jr. is just on a couple of personal bests on his lap, and he's just improved up into 3rd place. So Kevin Ellis Jr. up into 3rd now, topping his Apex Racing Team teammate Pete Berryman. So Kevin is on it now. He's on a high. He had a really good 2020. He was basically one of the most improved drivers last year. in the World Championship scene. Got himself a win yesterday, so he's really buoyed by that, and he must be feeling confident to be able to go into this championship and have a genuine prospect of winning the championship.
Yeah, he definitely is one of the most promising drivers, and one of those drivers that, like you said, has developed the most over the course of 2020, and like you said, into 2021, looking to go for more. He's got a healthy amount of slipstream from the cars in front. That's not going to be an issue for him right now as he heads his way through. The fast right-hander of Woodcut looking to head their way down in towards Cobb's Corner, again maintaining that slipstream. Kevin Nash Jr. particularly quick at this stage of qualifying, but is it enough to upset the Red Bull Racing Esports 1-2 at the very front right now?
I mean, I'm just looking at my timing screen, and he's not really improving that much personal best wise, so he'll be pushing on, maybe pushing on to get back to the pits as quickly as possible, because with under 5 minutes remaining, your outlap is about 2 3/4 minutes. So you're not going to have a lot of time to get out there and then get your tyres in the right place to be able to push on and get a good qualifying time. So we'll see if he darts off to the left. No, he's staying out there. So Kevin obviously feels that he's confident enough with this tyre now to really push on and get another flying lap.
There was a little bit of a shake of the head there, so maybe not too confident in this lap, but we'll see what it is. Heading his way out of Club Corner across the start-finish line. It's 204.9. It's not good enough at all to be able to surpass Graham Carroll in P2 at the moment. So still that Red Bull Racing Esports front row lockout for the moment, with 4 minutes left remaining in this session. We're looking at the number 13 car. That's Simeon Lynch heading his way through towards the exit the Maggots and Beckett section, coming through Chapel now, down the hanger straight towards Stowe. He doesn't have a drafting partner though, so I don't really have much hope for this lap.
No, he certainly doesn't seem to have that, but we'll have to see how he gets out there and pushes on. But right now, one driver who's really pushing to try and get his tyres in the right place, because they're on an outlap right now, but he actually set a purple sector out there on his outlap, was Graham Carroll, who we're looking at, who's in second place. So they're in a hurry. They can get potentially 2 laps in here, Connery, to be able to set themselves a really good lap time.
And Job seems pretty happy giving the draft to him here. So despite his pole position at risk at this point, if Graham Carroll's able to go just that little bit faster, he's still going to help out his teammate regardless. And, well, that does a world of good for the team cohesion, I suppose. Yeah,
they'll be happy with that. I mean, to be fair, Graham has basically... Jamie Moon comes up into 4th place. Great lap from Jamie to himself up into 4th, just 500ths off of Kevin Ellis Jr. But Graham Carroll has really sort of nurtured Sebastian all the way from his days when they were both with the Apex Racing team. So that he's really worked through. They've stuck together as a pairing throughout the different teams that they've been in. And it's really showing, and they've got a great cohesive unit there to be able to work together like this, even at such a high competitive level.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So they still maintain just over 1/10 of a second, at least if you compare Carroll to Ellis in P2 and P3. So the gap is not that big in the grand scheme of things. It just looks decent sized in comparison to some of the other gaps that you see out there with drivers very, very close together in the mid-pack. So we'll just have to continue to watch this one through. Sebastian Job, well, that's a liberal use of the track limits there on the outside of Copse, but the thing is, this isn't his lap that he's concerned about.
Yeah, he's not going to get a lap time out of that one. If you're new to iRacing, hello everybody. Well, I hope you all enjoy this. But if you iRacing, it has an instant point system. So if you end up, say, running off track, the system will give you an instant point, and that automatically invalidates your qualifying lap. There you go. There's Sebastian moving out the way for Graham. So Graham's going to finish this lap. I don't think it's going to be an improvement for Graham, but he's still going to push on because he has to be able to at least try You never know what tenth of a second you could pick up. But any car contact that you get as well, that gives you an instant point, and we'll see that throughout the... well, hopefully we won't see any car contact throughout this event, but with the nature of the close competitive nature of this season, I would imagine there'll be a little bit of door banging and paint rubbing, but you never know.
It was a 2:04.9 from Graham Carroll at that time across the start-finish line, so a healthy amount of tenths of a second off of Sebastian Job's pole position time. We'll get another chance at it, albeit without the draft here, so he's definitely going to be up against it coming into the final couple of moments of this session. Having a look at the number 51 car at the moment, that is Josh Thompson in the orange-trimmed Porsche there, heading his way through the final couple of corners of the lap right now. And, well, again, let's just see what the lap time's going to be. It's over 2 minutes by the time he hits the apex of Club Corner. So, just about. We won't actually get ourselves.
No, we won't.
The extra time.
But Pete Berryman, right at the death, getting himself into second place.
Yeah, just spotted that right at the very final moment. So the grid has changed last minute here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. This is the starting grid for race 1 of round number 1. Sebastian Joe, pole position, with Peter Berryman at the very last moment, getting himself up into P2. Graham Carroll and Kevin Ellis Jr. will consist of row number 2. Then scrolling back, you got Jamie Moon and John Robertson bringing things down to P6. Kieran Harrison and Josh Thompson down to P8. Then you have a returning to iRacing, Isaac Price, P9. Jamie Fluke, P10. Thomas O'Leary and Jack Cedric, P11 and 12. Damian Lynch lines up in 13th with Matthew Dorrington in P14. Blair Mann in P15. Fraser Williamson starts in 16th here today. And then you have a look further down, you got Lewis Goodway, Bart Horston, Jordan Weeks, Craig Williams down to P20. And then you get those drivers at the very tail end of the starting grid here today. In P21, you have Nastelchik, McNish, you have Draj, you have Emery, Webster, Harkins, and William Martin at the very back of the starting grid here today. P number 27 for him. We are just a couple of tens of seconds away from the green flag, so very quickly, Paul, your expectations.
It's going to be fast, it's going to be frenetic, it's going to be thrilling to watch. I can't wait for this.
Hear those engines rev now. We're about to get round number 1, race 1 underway in the Porsche Carrera Esports Great Britain. And they've started now. Sebastian Joe, poor getaway from the very front of the field. Peter Berryman is able to slide alongside, coming down in towards turn number 1 for the first time. He hasn't been able to gain too much ground, though. Still a bit of a scrap for P3 further behind. Kevin Ellis Jr. versus Graham Carroll, side by side, coming into the right-hander. Big fight for the race lead as well. Berryman's been scared wide. We have 3 wide in towards the loop now for P2. Berryman on the inside, able to just about recover, but he went from attack to defense in such a quick fashion.
Yeah, Kevin Ellis Jr. looking threatening on Graham Carroll straight away. Carroll feeling the need to go defensive there. Good clean start. We've got a spinner in the background. I think that might be Craig Williams, or William Martin actually is around further back. Kieran Harrison as well is dropping down the timing sheet. But everybody else being able to keep going here as we head on to the old start and finish straight. And side-by-side action, Kevin Ellis Jr. has got a great start compared to Graham Carroll.
Yeah, Kevin Ellis Jr. just half a car length into third, and he'll be able to get the inside line for Copse Corner, but the momentum around the outside will work in Graham Carroll's favour. They're still door-to-door on the way into Maggots and Beckett's for the first time. Which driver will yield? Will any of them yield? Kevin Ellis Jr. has been able to gain the place and slides across the nose of Graham Carroll. Fantastic pass, fantastic battle there for the final step of the podium, but this definitely isn't over because there's a big slipstream opportunity for Carroll coming down into Stowe.
And that hasn't helped Kevin as well, because he's got a little bit of a gap between him and the front two. Carroll's looking to maybe make a move. No, he's staying where he is. Fraser Williamson's had a slow down penalty, by the way. He's dropping down the order. But we're getting towards the end of lap 1 already, and Sebastian Job, Pete Berryman are looking to try and break away at the front.
Yep, they really are, and you know, it's going to be so important here to try and break that slipstream, because if you don't, then, well, all the drivers behind are going to be in contention, no matter if in clear air they are a tenth or so off of your pace. They can just use the slipstream as the great equalizer, as we call it, to give themselves an opportunity. Look at this, though, Graham Carroll still over the back, all over the back of Kevin Ellis Jr. Carroll really wants that P3 back, and I don't think he's going to give up for another 22 minutes and a half.
Certainly not. Kevin, we saw yesterday in the World Championship Series how proficient he is at being a defensive driver. Sebastian Job at the front is having to feel the need to break the draft of Pete Berryman behind, so the slipstream is a massive, massive effect around here. Such a high-speed track, so breaching that draft. There you go, Graham Carroll's flashing the headlights. He's saying, I want to get past, but Kevin Ellis is not having any of that.
No, he's just got to stay focused and, you know, just pay attention to his own lines at this point. Graham Carroll will do his best to try and put him off his game, try and show the nose coming down in some of these corners, try and do a little bit of weaving on the straights as well to remind Kevin Ellis Jr. that he's there and ready to pounce whenever he wants to. But now into Begets once again. Look how much more speed Carroll's able to carry through there. Maybe Kevin Ellis Jr. A bit more relaxed coming through there than Graham Carroll was. He really attacked those apexes, but it's the exit here of Chapel which is so important to get this slipstream run all the way down into Stowe. Graham Carroll's going to sit inside the slipstream here, but he's not going to be close enough to go down the inside at that fast right-hander, so Ellis Jr. will be able to hold on once again. I
think Kevin can now start maybe trying to focus forward, because Graham isn't going to make a rash move here. He's a very wily driver, is Graham. He's not one prone to make a silly dive bomb down the inside. He's very calculated at times. And that's what you're seeing Kevin Ellis Jr. in the background sideways out of club corner. And that's going to give Graham Carroll the opportunity to dive down the inside of Abbey. But that's now the outside for Farm.
Kevin Ellis Jr. able to hold position. Still a big wide opening on the inside that Carroll's able to dive his way in. Now up towards the loop, Carroll on the outside. Is he going to go for the cutback and try and get the speed off the corner coming down the Wellington straight? He's struggling to do so, but he's close enough to get a whole bunch of slipstream on the way down in towards Brooklands. Is there any defense here into Brooklands for Kevin Ellis Jr.? No, he's going to let Graham Carroll go to the inside and maybe fight back on the inside of Luffield. Carroll, look at that. Oh, he's got himself by. That's a stellar pass there from Graham Carroll. He didn't give the option for Ellis Jr. to hold the inside of Luffield. He just did it all in one corner.
All of this, though, mate, has allowed Berryman and Job to pull away at the front of your field. So this squabbling has let your two leaders pull away. They're putting themselves in a great position. At the moment, by the way, Josh Thompson is in the absolute prime seat here. He's at the back of this pack of four, but he's also in line to get that reverse grid pole position. So it's that question of, do you fight and try and move your way forward, get yourself a few more points, or do you think, do you know what, I'll take pole position in the next race?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you've always got to think about that coming into, especially the last couple of minutes of this race, looking back at that battle for the P6, because P6 will become pole position for race number 2. But we're still a long way from that point, still 19 minutes left in this race, and a decent train here for that final step of the podium. Graham Carroll has been able to get to the head of this one, but there's some very eager drivers behind that wouldn't mind getting themselves onto the podium as well. We're riding on board with Josh Thompson on his roof cam as they all get very, very close coming through Club Corner. Across the start-finish line they come, and, well, they are as close as you like. Kevin Ellis Jr. has been harassing the rear bumper of Graham Carroll, so I expect to move back from him in a couple of moments.
Yeah, never writes off Kevin, that's for sure. As defensive move, Josh Thompson behind, making the move on Jamie Moon. They're going to be side by side. Moon's going to have the inside line, but that's Josh Thompson trying to really make a stake of saying, right, I'm going forward here, lads. I want to get to the head of this group.
Yeah, Jamie Moon might have to pull off a defense into Brooklands as well, as Josh Thompson, well, he had a run of speed, but didn't decide to go for anything risky at this stage of the race. Maybe we'll see that a little bit later on, but it seems like all the action is here inside the top 10. Of course, those two race leaders, you got Sebastian Joe, Peter Berryman, they're in their own two-car tango right at the very front of the field with no one else around them, as all of these cars squabble for position. Yeah,
it's really a queue of traffic. Apart from the front two, it's then just a queue of traffic all the way down to 24th. It's great to see everybody so close together. I mean, you can see down to 18th covered by 9 seconds. So the competition is tight here in this championship, and this is exactly what we wanted to see.
It really is, and of course with these races being 25 minutes long, of course, if you were watching the Super Cup yesterday, they had pretty hot track temperatures. Track temperatures not as hot here, but still pretty, well, hot in the grand scheme of things if you're from the UK, shall we say that.
Yes.
As they're sitting at 41 degrees in terms of the track temp here. So those tyres maybe going to be struggling towards the end of this race, just like they were during the Super Cup.
Yeah, and tyre management is going to be a key thing, as actually that lead has closed up now. So Pete Berryman, a man who only just missed out on qualifying for the World Championship Series, he'll be setting his sights on trying to win this championship, just to give him some form of consolation for not making it into the World Championship. He's a highly capable competitor, is Pete, and certainly got the pace as well when we saw him qualify second on the grid. And he's putting all sorts of pressure on Sebastian Job, and Job, the world champion from 2020, is not pulling away at the moment.
Yeah, it seems no matter what he tries, the gap is still remaining at about that half a second to 0.6 of a second. So the gap is just stagnant at the moment. I wonder if that's because Peter Berryman is not pushing 110% at this stage and taking too much out of his tires. He wants the tire life for the closing 5 or 6 minutes or so, where he'll be able to make that pass, and Job won't be able to come back at him.
Well, that's it. He needs to think long, because he needs to put the pressure on Sebastian so that he uses and abuses his tyres. But at the same point, he himself, Pete, needs to look after his tyres to give himself the best opportunity towards the end of the race. This is a strategic game that you're playing. I mean, we're only just about to reach 10 minutes of this race gone. So plenty of laps left in this one, about 7.5 laps remaining here, so there's plenty of time. There's no need to rush these things here.
No need to rush at all. As you can see, the decent separation between P1, P2 and the rest of the field. They've been able to get away pretty well. They're not getting away as fast as they were at the very start of the race, though. That gap has been reeled in just a little bit, but you got Graham Carroll and Kevin Ellis Jr. still at the head of that P3 train at the moment. Oh, a little bit of a snap oversteer for Graham Carroll, a bit of a mistake over the curb coming through Club Corner as well. So Kevin Ellis Jr., he can really capitalize on this one heading through the first sector if the opportunity is given to him. You can see how close he's getting in towards the entry to turn 1, but turn 1 isn't an overtaking opportunity, but the next corner is, as he's going to carry the speed through. He's going to go and dive down towards the inside, as he know, just going to stay in line. But Kevin Ellis Jr., he had the sense to go for a move there due to the amount of speed he was carrying. But look at behind him, though. Josh Thompson and Jamie Moon battling door to door through the first sector.
Once again, those two side by side. Oh, and
whoa.
Thompson just across the nose of Moon manages to get the position. So up to 5th place goes Josh Thompson. He's the marksman now, setting his sights on the two Scotsmen in front of him. And he's really got the bit between his teeth as Josh. He had a bad day yesterday. He wants to put that to the bed and really give himself a good display here today. And that's exactly what he's doing now.
Yeah, brilliant performance indeed, but the thing is, it's costing him a little bit of time. Well, these two battling costing a little bit of time to Kevin Ellis Jr. and Graham Carroll, but they're still securely within the slipstream, so I wouldn't say it's a concerning situation just yet. Kevin looks pretty eager, though, to get back past Graham Carroll. He's really trying to drive it into some of these corners and apply the pressure to the rear bumper of the Red Bull Racing Esports car. But again, these drivers, they know how to deal with this sort of pressure. Some of them are the highest level drivers on iRacing. You know, they compete in the Porsche Carrera Esports Super Cup, so they've been in this situation before. It's not a stranger to them, but even the best drivers can crack from time to time. Yeah,
absolutely. You put that pressure on, and then, well, it just relentless pressure. Somebody will eventually crack. It's how well you can mentally cope with that. Oh, Thompson up on the curb. Oh, we've got side-by-side action further down as well. I believe that's Mann and O'Leary, is it? Yes, it is. So Mann up to 10th, O'Leary 11th, with Simeon Lynch right behind them as well. So battling through club. I mean, side-by-side doesn't always work through there, does it, Connery?
No, it doesn't. We might even get a little bit more coming in towards farm. And, oh, just about Blair Mann getting a bit of snaps oversteer off the corner. Now into the loop. This is a great chance for Thomas O'Leary's head his way through. Another bit of oversteer for Blair Mann. Bit of contact with Simeon Lynch there. Lynch is able to hold on to it, but Blair Mann's losing a ton of spots.
Yeah, that's not worked out. And that little bit of a running wide up over the curb, and that's cost him big. Down to 16th from 10th place, so huge mistake to make, and that's allowed them to really be able to push on. There is side-by-side further behind them as well, and that is going to be, I believe that's Lewis Goodway trying to fight it out with Blair Mann. Oh no, it's the Jack Sedgwick, should I say, sorry.
Yeah, and fantastic battling here, even in outside the top 10. You know, we've been focusing inside the top 10 for so long, but these guys deeper in the field can certainly race wheel to wheel as well. And it's, well, Jack Sedgwick having to drop back for Magnussen Beckett. You don't really want to go side by side through here. It doesn't mean it's not possible, it's just that you lose a lot of time if you do so, and it gives the opportunity for drivers behind to try and get past you. But again, these slipstream trains have been a big feature here today, and there's a little bit of Simeon Lynch got a slowdown penalty through Magnussen Beckett.
Yeah, it's so easily done. That final right-hander through Beckett, if you take too much of that curb on the inside, it gives you a slowdown penalty, and it's the worst feeling when you're going down the Hanger Straight, one of the fastest points of the circuit, and you're just watching those cars go by you as you're having to serve that slowdown penalty. But it's there for a reason. It's there to stop people from cutting the track, and it is a great leveler for everyone out there.
It really is. We're coming up to 10 minutes left remaining in this race now. So drivers starting to think and starting to prepare for their final attacks, I would say, for the final couple of laps of this race. We've got about 5 laps to go here at this one, by my estimation, with the time left remaining in the race. Graham Carroll continuing to come under pressure. Oh, Kevin Ellis Jr. looked to the inside there, coming down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands, but still no move being made. Ellis Jr., he's basically just pressing the nose of that Porsche right into the rear bumper of Graham Carroll and telling Graham Carroll to deal with it.
Yeah, if anybody can apply pressure, it is absolutely Kevin Ellis Jr. He is somebody who will just let you know it's there, I'm still here, and I'm wanting to make you make a mistake. And but Graham, as I said, very experienced out there, and really he is somebody who can just absorb that pressure. It's a classic shot through Beckett's here, watching the cars dance around, sliding through the corners. Of course, not got the full level of aerodynamics that you would say in a GT3 car. Oh, there's another car with a slowdown penalty further back.
Might have been...
It's the 86, John Robertson.
John Robertson has had himself a slowdown penalty there, and you know, it is one of the trouble spots here. Coming through Maggots and Beckett, it's mostly also Chapel where you can pick up a slowdown penalty if you get a little bit too over-eager with the inside curb, and John Robertson serving that slowdown penalty in quite a swift fashion. It does give you time. Oh, Inston at the well, the mid-pack of the field, 56 is involved in that one. That's Liam McNish involved with a couple of other drivers down into the 20s positions there. Not exactly sure what was the instigation of that, but we haven't had too many big incidents so far this race.
Well, we'll have a look at one then here. And so here we are through Stowe. Oh, the 39's got a slide on the... Oh, almost saved it. And unfortunately, the innocent party being McNish. And yeah, nowhere for them to go.
Yeah, the number 39 there that lost it on the inside was Kieran Harrison, and unfortunately those drivers behind just got collected in that one. It was almost the save of the race, but unfortunately there was a car in the way, I suppose, in that one. But having a look back to the P3 battle, Graham Carroll still holding on to this one, but Kevin Ellis Jr. at some point it's going to be go time for him, because we got about 3.5 laps, I would say, in this race. And he's got to make this move calculated now, because he's got to do it in such a convincing manner that Graham Carroll can't come back at him immediately.
Yeah, he needs to make this one count and make sure it sticks. Just dropping off. Look at Josh Thompson suddenly on the back of them as well. Thompson applying the pressure now. So Ellis Jr. has got to look in front of him and behind him. The worst place to be is in the middle of a sandwich here, especially with Josh. Josh is somebody who will make a move. He's not shy of making an overtaking move. He was, and he even admitted himself, he was quite reckless when he first started in sim racing, but now he's calmed himself down quite a bit. He's still got the pace there, but his racecraft has come on leaps and bounds, and right now he's showing that he's wanting an opportunity. Kevin Ellis Jr. also in front, wanted that opportunity.
This is developing into a fantastic little scrap. We haven't seen the side-by-side action happen for a good couple of laps at this point, but you get the feeling that something is really, really brewing in this battle for P3. We can see the onboard shot of Josh Thompson. You can see his webcam on the right-hand side as well as he tries to work that wheel through. Of course, he's got all of his helmets lined up on his shelf there as well, so has competed in some series in the real world, but really has made his name in sim racing and continuing to drive at a top level.
Yeah, he's certainly putting in a good shift in this opening race. The two leaders, by the way, have pulled away 4 seconds, nearly 5 seconds now over this battle. So the squabbling between these three, Graham Carroll doing a good job of holding these other drivers behind, but the squabbling that they've been having, I mean, look at them, the leaders are just going through Cop's Corner as they're coming on to the old start-finish straight. So a big gap for the two leaders. 5 minutes remaining. Now, when does Pete Berryman start making some moves here in this race?
Yeah, that's the big question, because they have the space to be able to scrap in and amongst themselves on the final couple of laps without risking dropping back into this absolute fire pit of a P3 battle. So the situation is a little bit different for them than it would be for, say, Carroll and Ellis, where if they scrap a little bit too much for too long, then you've got Josh Thompson, Jamie Moon, Jamie Fluke, all could get themselves involved in the battle pretty quickly. They don't have that gap to be able to work with, to be able to have the battle on their own without any third parties coming into this. So it's a different element in these two very similar battles for P1, P2 and for P3 and back. We're looking at Sebastian Job then, of course, 2020 Super Cup champion here on the esports side of things. Berryman, again, just about 5/10 of a second behind, but hasn't really been able to get any closer than that. And this is where the experience really comes into things here, Paul, as Sebastian Job has to channel that consistency he had through the 2020 season and get it to the checkered flag. Yeah,
he's got to keep calm, keep level-headed, not do anything rash, and to keep himself in the lead. By the way, 76 is Jamie Moon, coming under pressure from Jamie Fluke. Now this is the battle for the reverse grid pole position. We said we were going to keep an eye on this, didn't we, earlier on? And well, Jamie Fluke, now the Northern Irishman, trying to put pressure on Moon in front of him and trying to force that mistake.
Yeah, so battle at the front of the train, battle towards the rear of the train as well. In terms of that P3 through, let's see, there's P3, P7 battle. You also got Isaac Price that could get himself involved in this as well, should things go awry. So that's a situation with 3 minutes left to go here, and a little bit of battling deeper in the packs as well. That's Jordan Weeks and Jack Sedgwick looking to go wheel to wheel on the way into Maggots and Beckett's. Here comes Jack Sedgwick then looking to the outside for the first apex, but can't get anything done around there.
Yeah, you're not really going to make the move through Maggots into Beckett's, and it's really just biding your time now. This is the run. He needs to run out of Chapel, down the hangar straight to really put the pressure on, and you look at that, Weeks feeling the need to go defensive, forcing Sedgwick to go the long way round Stowe. You can hang it out around the outside there if you're brave, and if you've got the pace, but not this time. Can make a move through the Vale into Club, but again, no move forthcoming. But we should be having around 1 lap remaining of this race. It's going to be tight, is this one?
Oh yeah, it's going to be very, very tight as Sebastian Joe crossed the line with about 2 minutes remaining. They do 2:04, 2:05s in the race laps here, so this should be the final lap, but we'll get further confirmation once we get it towards the final sector. But here's the battle deeper in the pack then for P11. Jack Sedgwick looking all over the back of Jordan Weeks, looking to the outside for the loop as well. Big lunge to try to go and carry the momentum around the outside there, but nothing doing here for Jack Sedgwick. He'll just have to remain in line for now and wait to fight another day. He has a bunch of hungry piranhas behind him as well that will capitalize on any error that these front two make in this train. But back to the front of the P3 battle then, as Graham Carroll has held on for the majority of this race. Kevin Ellis Jr. looking here and there, but still has had no obvious opportunity so far to get himself back past back up into P3, which he held for a couple of laps near the start of the race. But look at them, just trying to apply the pressure, looking left, looking right, coming into the Maggots and Beckett's now. It's got to be no errors here for Graham Carroll, and he might have to put on a sterling defense coming in towards Stowe Corner as well. Don't forget about Josh Thompson looking for a healthy amount of points in this train as well, as they head on towards the hangar straight for what we think is going to be the final time here. Sebastian Job is just heading his way through Stowe Corner now, so we'll get confirmation of the final lap in just a couple of moments' time. Carroll's able to hold on coming up towards Stowe. Ellis Jr. still second in line in that P3 battle. Checkered flag is out, so Sebastian Job will head his way out of Club Corner to win the first race of the season here at Silverstone, with Peter Berryman in second place and Graham Carroll able to hold on for P3 at the very end. Ellis wasn't able to do it, and Jamie Moon with a P6 finish is your pole position sitter for race 2.
Yeah, that was a tremendous race. Great action out there. Rest of your field is finishing. Jack Sedgwick able to get ahead of Jordan Weeks in the end further down your field. And so, yeah, really enjoyable. Josh Webster and William Martin, not the best of races here in this early one, but here's your results. Yeah,
here we go then. Sebastian Job, race winner for race number 1 here today, with over half a second advantage to Peter Berryman. Graham Carroll holds on to a podium finish here for race 1 with Kevin Ellis Jr. P4, Josh Thompson P5, and you have Jamie Moon P6, which will give him a reverse grid pole position. Jamie Fluke will narrowly miss out on that, finishing in P7. Isaac Price, decent gain for him in this race, up into P8. John Robertson P9, and Thomas O'Leary finishes 10th. And then looking back, you got Jack Sedgwick involved in a couple of battles here today, and, well, he ends up in P11, Blair Mann P12, Jordan Weeks in P13, Simeon Lynch in P14, Bart Horston P15, Lewis Goodway, Matthew Dorrington, Israel Anastalsik, Fraser Williamson, and Matt Emery will bring things down to P20 here today. And then those drivers that perhaps didn't have the greatest of races. Craig A. Williams, you've got Ryan Parkins, Josh Webster, Raviol Drazkas, and you've also got Liam McNish, William Martin, and Kieran Harrison towards the very back of the finishing order there, Paul.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it was a tremendous race. Really enjoyable opening of this championship, and tremendous close competition. It was what we expected to see, especially after we saw the level of competition that was taking part in this series. So yeah, more. We want more of this, and with the top 6 being inverted for the grid, that will give us some extra little bit of spice going on into this feature race.
Absolutely. We've got a little bit of a 10-minute warm-up before we get into that second race here today, but I think overall this first race was really characterized by the fantastic defense that both Graham Carroll and of course Sebastian Job at the very front were able to pull off. Of course, in the case of Sebastian Job, it was more managing the gap, but for Graham Carroll, he had to deal with the pressure constantly for the final half of that race to come home in P3.
Yeah, it was, as you say, constant pressure from Kevin Ellis Jr. Really did just ramp it up, kept the pressure onto him all the time, and was trying to force the mistake, was Kevin. But then he had to look behind him as well, because soon Josh Thompson was getting involved. So definitely it was a tremendous defensive display from Graham Carroll after having to make his way back past Graham in the first place. Past Kevin. Get my names mixed up there.
There we go. It was a great scrap between them in the early portions of the race, though, and you know, I'm looking to see more of that coming into race number 2. So, race number 2, if you're not aware, the top 6 will have the reverse grid. So, if the driver finished in P6 will be pole position, the driver finished in P5 will be second place, and so on and so forth. So, Jamie Moon will be pole position. You've got Josh Thompson also on that front row, and Kevin Ellis Jr. will start P3, Graham Carroll P4. So, this is actually a decent opportunity for Ellis to get to the very front. We know he's so comfortable behind the wheel of these cars, and he has had a lot of pace in recent times. As long as he can make short work of Moon and Thompson and not get spooked by Carroll on the start, then he should have a good chance here. Should have
a great chance, but you never say never here in this series. But yeah, this is where we'll get to see whether those that finished in 6th, so Jamie Moon, will be able to keep his cool under the pressure and really absorb the level of moves and fakes that are going to be made by the others that are behind him. But those outside of the top 6, they shouldn't be too disheartened either, though. It should also be a case of they can see a potential opportunity to try and make some moves early on, get themselves past those drivers who finished 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then keep them behind to improve their chances in this championship.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit curious about some of the driver chat that's going on in this little warm-up session right now. There was one of the drivers, Josh Webster, who is a real-life Porsche Carrera Cup GB competitor. He said he's sweating in this more than he is in the real car, which I think goes to show how much effort's going in.
And when you think that they're wearing, 4 layers of Nomex suits in the real car, you're in an enclosed car with the engine in the rear, all that heat in that car, yeah. It shows the level of effort that you need to put in sim racing. A lot of people will just say, oh, it's just people playing video games. It's not. It's more serious. If you've got high-level, high-end equipment, say like a direct drive wheel, for example, the force that you have to put in to turn that wheel is incredible. Some of the top ones can be up to, say, 25 Newton meters of holding torque. That's not peak torque either, that's just the holding force that it can do. You've got to be a seriously fit person. Sebastian Job last year was paired up with a personal trainer to work on his fitness and his strength and conditioning, because they identified that was an area that he needed to improve to become a better driver. Just like you see in the real life, they all have to be fit people and not be, say, like myself, who sat in the commentary box talking about it, because after 20 minutes he's huffing and puffing.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, that whole fitness and well-being also extends to the mental aspect as well, so you can, you know, maybe focus for a little bit longer, not get distracted so much, so you can be in that zone, you know, when push comes to shove, and not crack under the pressure like we see so many drivers do. And Graham Carroll, for example, in that race was so good in just keeping calm and not making any mistakes. And that meant that Ellis wasn't able to get any sort of opportunity, and that all comes down to the whole strength and conditioning and the mental aspect of racing. And you know, it's the exact same thing in the real world as it is in sim racing, and it's brilliant to see that we've now gotten to that level where those things actually really make the difference between P1 and P5. Yeah,
it's if you want to be one of the best, if you're an aspiring sim racer who's just getting out, just getting started, got your first wheel, you don't have to get high-end equipment to be able to compete in a championship like this. All that high-end equipment does is just makes you a little bit more consistent lap after lap. But you know, if you're just getting started out, work on some upper body, work on some strength and stamina training, get yourself fit, because if you're physically fitter, you're less likely to make a bad decision during the race. And that's what we see out here week in, week out, the difference between the top drivers and the drivers that just aren't quite there. One little mistake and it's everything. That's the difference. That's the fine line that you've got in a series like this.
And that difference is perhaps a little bit more pronounced in a series like this because you have fixed setups for these drivers. So that's the difference between this and the more international Super Cup that we had yesterday. These drivers are given a setup and they all have to use that very same car setup, and there's no leeway about it. So there's another leveling of the playing field there. So that means those little elements that you can change, like your mentality and things like that, they make a more pronounced difference than they otherwise would do.
I mean, really, the only thing that you can really change with a fixed setup is maybe the brake bias and tyre pressures. That's about all really that you can get away with, I believe, from the top of my head. But it's adaptability is another factor that these drivers have to show here, and you're seeing that with those drivers who finished up near the top of that initial race, that first race there. They've got that adaptability in the bag, so that if a car's not quite like what they want it to be, they're able to adjust their driving style to be able to suit that setup and to really help them get to the front of the field. And that's where, again, another little trait is having that adaptability of being able to adjust things and make things work in your favour really does help you out.
Yeah, it really does, and some people have noticed your background there, Paul. If you're wondering, that is not just a standard loop that he set up his green screen on. That is the actual session these drivers are driving in right now. So any of those cars going around right now, those are actually driving in the actual warm-up session that we have right now. So
I think it was Matthew Dorrington.
I think you wanted to show off a little bit there, Paul, with your technical prowess. I don't have as much of I don't have a good background for a green screen, so we'll maybe coming soon, I suppose. But we've just got around about 30 seconds left before we get the gridding procedure underway for race number 2 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup GB. What are your expectations for this one? Because we have that reverse grid in effect. It's going to spice things up a little bit. Will we see more fighting at the front?
I expect to see Josh Thompson try and make a move straight away and try and get away from the field, because we've seen him overtake Jamie Moon once already today, so he'll feel confident fighting against Jamie to be able to make that move. He wants to try and do that early on to try and get a breakaway so that gives him the best opportunity. So look out for that. Look out for Sebastian Job and Graham Carroll also putting the pressure on.
Yeah, so look out for those drivers that are on the bad end of the reverse grid here for this one as they try to make their way through the field. Even those drivers that had a poor qualifying for race number 1 and were able to make progress in the actual race and get themselves a decent starting position here for race number 2. Here's the starting grid then. Jamie Moon in pole position thanks to the reverse grid. Josh Thompson on that front row as well. Kevin Ellis Jr. P3. Graham Carroll in P4 here today. And then P5 and back Peter Berryman, Sebastian Jobe, Jamie Fluke, and Isaac Price down to P8. Then John Robertson, Thomas O'Leary, Jack Sedgwick, and Blair Mann down to P12. And we'll speed through the rest of them here as you see Lewis Goodway down there in P16. We've got a pretty short gridding time here before we get to the green flag. So we'll do a very, very quick run through. You see Fraser Williamson there down in P19 with Matt Emery in P20. But we're just about to get ourselves to the race start then. Drivers are already preparing themselves and revving those engines to go for more Porsche racing here in race 2 at Silverstone in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup GB. Someone's very, very sluggish coming off the line there. That's Sebastian Jobe. Sebastian Jobe has gotten a horrible start there. He's been swamped by the field and he's cycled down into P13 and is fighting with Jordan Weeks now. What happened to Seb at the start?
I don't know, but it's still pretty tight battling in towards Village and the loop right now. Another person who didn't get the best start was Josh Thompson. That allowed Kevin Ellis Jr. to get the jump, and that meant that Kevin has got a great opportunity here to battle for the lead of this race, but it's a go down the Wellington Straight for the first time. Look at Ellis Jr. He's looking to make a move down the inside.
Look at this, Kevin Ellis Jr. looking to go from P3 to P1 in the space of a lap, going around the outside here at Luffield. Jamie Moon trying to hold on the inside, and he has held on. Kevin Ellis Jr. way out into the runoff there, but he's back on circuit now, and Josh Thompson's looking to apply the pressure as well. But look at it back in the midfield, though. It is an absolute cluster as drivers try to sort themselves out positions, and I think Sebastian Jobe may be involved in this whole situation as well as he tries to recover after that poor start. But he's back up to P11. He's challenging P10 now. Oh,
we're going 3 wide into Maggots. That's never going to work between you guys. Sort it out. And well, 22 Sebastian Jobe is side by side there with Jack Sedgwick in that middle pack. You've also got Thomas O'Leary involved here. There's Simeon Lynch. There's Blair Mann. It's carnage and chaos in the mid-pack, but incredibly, they're all still out there and all still going. As battle for the lead is ongoing, and that's going to be Kevin Ellis Jr. to the lead.
Kevin Ellis Jr. gains 2 spots in the first lap to go to the race lead. Moon looking to the inside. Here comes Graham Carroll around the outside of Thompson for P3 here, and he's not clear just yet, but he will be by the time Club Corner arrives, as we'll get our view of this. Josh Thompson very slow through Club. He gets a bit of contact from behind. Berryman ran into his rear bumper because Josh Thompson was so slow coming through the final corner, but thankfully all drivers involved were able to keep it together and not have a big crash coming onto the start-finish straight.
This is incredible. This is, again, what we wanted to see out there. Matthew Dorrington involved in a battle. There's a dive down the inside. And the 16 with Goodway side by side, trying to sort themselves out. It's going to be Dorrington who stays ahead of Goodway. In fact, Fraser Williamson now making the move on Dorrington himself. So, on Goodway, should I say. So Lewis Goodway, Fraser Williamson battling it out further down in your order. They're still going side by side.
Yeah, and Williamson, well, he'll have the outside for Luffield now. You can see that battle up on your screen. And number 72 looking to go the long way around, and Williamson's been able to keep himself in it here. He has a slight overlap, but he'll lose that overlap as they head their way through Woodcut. And now he'll look to the inside of Cobb's Corner. Ooh, that's going to be a very risky move. Deep on the brace, scares Lewis Goodway wide. I don't know if there was any contact, and they both push wide, and underneath goes Matt Emery to get the both of them.
That is sensational. And the thing is, if they've gone that far out wide, they actually get a slow down penalty out there because you can carry so much speed. iRacing, if you go too far wide at Cops, gives you a slow down penalty, and that's dropped them all the way down to 23rd, 24th.
Yeah, so Williamson going later on the brakes scared Lewis Goodway. They both pushed wide, and like he said, when you do that, you have to go for a slowdown penalty and lose a ton of spots. We're having a look back to Craig Williams further back in the pack. Yeah, another slowdown penalty for him as well. So some of them getting those coming through the Maggott and Beckett section. This is the group involving William Martin and Parkins that we just had coming down in towards the Vale chicane. But look at this battle for P2 going on. Jamie Moon now trying to hold off Graham Carroll. So this is your reverse gate pole position sitter starting to fall back to the field. There's a little bit of contact. Oh, Carroll locks up the brakes. He's gone deep into the corner and everyone goes underneath him.
Yeah, so from being in third place, he's dropped all the way down to fifth. He's going side by side with Pete Berryman. And Berryman, the man who fought for second place in race 1, getting squeezed there by Graham Carroll. Carroll not giving an inch. Josh Thompson, in the meantime, at the front of this group, trying to get the move around the outside of Jamie Moon through Brooklands. There's Jamie Fluke involved in all of this. Isaac Price, great to see him back in action here on iRacing. He's in 7th place, and he's getting involved in this battle.
Yeah, he is. Well, he's in that bright orange Porsche. You really can't miss it in that train right there, as he's of course had taken a bit of a hiatus from iRacing, but he's back into the thick of things now and showing exactly what he's made of. Of course, he's competed in World Championships here on iRacing as well. Running on board though with Josh Thompson, who currently resides in P3. After getting promoted up a position because of Graham Carroll's error, and now he might have a go at Jamie Moon.
And crucially for Kevin Ellis Jr., he's about to break the slipstream time split. So if he can pull out enough, say, 0.3 of a second, Kevin Ellis Jr. will have broken the slipstream at the front of the field. Thompson to the inside of Sturr. That's a brave move, and he's made it work.
He has Jamie Moon getting a rudder speed off the corner. He almost runs into the back of Thompson there as we look back to Isaac Price and co. But this battle at the further up the order is still going on because Jamie Moon's compromised coming through the Vale chicane. Graham Carroll's able to get himself back past, and yes, he has. He cuts off the nose coming up towards Club, and that's the Graham Carroll, back up into the podium positions now after that mistake a couple of laps ago.
Have you noticed something, by the way? Sebastian Job, 8th place now. So Isaac Price has dropped down to 9th from 7th. So John Robertson and Sebastian Job able to make their way past. But Job putting the pressure on now. Yes, he had an awful start, but he's trying to make the most of this now and trying to work his way back through.
Well, he's in this exact same train that extends all the way forwards to P2. Yeah. So he has passes left, right, and centre that he can pull off at this point and try and get back towards those podium positions. And so he's got to make short work of this because, of course, you know, it is a relatively short race in the grand scheme of things. We've got about 18 minutes left to go. So Sebastian Job needs to be quick and efficient in terms of dealing with these passes. Otherwise, he's just going to get stuck.
He certainly will. Speaking of people trying to make moves, Ryan Parkins around the outside, down in 22nd. That's Liam McNitch in front of him. Of course, Liam we saw have that instant at Stowe Corner, and here comes Lewis Goodway now trying to make a bit of a recovery on Parkins down the inside, and Parkins going to lose that position there down to 23rd, and right behind them Craig Williams is trying to make some moves as well. There's all sorts of rubbing and bumping going on, and Craig Williams says, well, thank you very much, I'll gain a position there.
Yeah, fantastic fighting all the way up and down the field here today. This is at the very tail end where you know, the likes of Craig Williams and Parkins reside.
Oh!
Meanwhile, battle for podium positions. You got Graham Carroll. Graham Carroll is through on Josh Thompson there, and that was coming up towards Stowe Corner, and Carroll, he just got the slipstream pass, diving down towards the inside to gain the position, and it wasn't really fought too hard, I will say, by Josh Thompson.
And that was down into Stowe as well, so again, that's where Josh Thompson made the move on the last lap. He's flashing his headlights at Graham, but Graham Carroll has got a little bit of a gap now and is able to try and pull away from them here. He wants to charge down on Kevin Ellis Jr. He wants Ding Ding round 2 for him and Kevin Ellis Jr. because he wants to get the win here. But look at this gaggle, because Jamie Moon, Pete Berryman battling away. You've got Jamie Fluke, Sebastian Job together as well. So it's brilliant stuff. Second down to 11th altogether.
Yeah, let's have well, we're getting ourselves a replay in just a couple of moments of the pass that Graham Carroll was able to pull off on Josh Thompson. But look at this, Peter Berryman and Jamie Moon briefly side by side through there. But we'll get back for the replay as that's the move. Graham Carroll down the inside of Thompson through Stowe Corner. I don't think Thompson has anything to be annoyed about there. That was just a simple pass down the inside. I don't know if there was something that happened earlier, but...
or whether he's just flashing the headlights saying, right, come on, let's work together, let's move forward together. As Fluke has actually had the position lost to Sebastian Job, although they're still side by side in the background of shot there. There you go, Fluke and Job, and it's Job who's going to make it ahead.
Yeah, Fluke committed to that, the next apex there and tried to carry a little bit too much speed through Beckett, so Sebastian Job was able to get that speed around the outside to be able to get that pass complete. So Sebastian Job now up into 6th place after his horrible start. And I gotta say, that is where he started in 6th place, because he won race number 1 and got reverse gridded all the way back down into 6th. But remember, at the first part of that first lap, he was down in P13. So he's done a good job to get himself back up into this position.
And that's showing those World Championship credentials there of being able to push on through the field. He's got experience of these reverse grid starts, not just in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, but also in other series as well that he's raced in. So Sebastian, and quite a few of these drivers, to be fair, in this field, they know what it's like to work through a reverse grid and work their way through a pack. But it's still really close stuff. Look at that jump to the inside. Decisive move in the loop. Moon's going to try and hang it out around the outside of Aintree, but I think it's just now a case of when, not if.
Jamie Fluke will look to try and capitalize on this as well. Jamie Fluke might even go to the inside on Sebastian Job here into Brooklands. He's not deep enough on the brakes to make that work, but he can still fight with Jamie Moon and perhaps gain one position here into Luffield. He's clear by the time the apex of Luffield arrives. So good opportunistic moments there for Jamie Fluke to be able to follow in the tyre tracks of Sebastian.
Yeah, certainly. Look at Sebastian now. He's looking at his mirrors, looking at his surroundings, seeing, right, what's the next target now? Where are we looking forward? And the gap is about 1.5 seconds, should I say, to Peter Berryman. So the man who he battled with in race number 1, that's his next target out there on track.
Yeah, it is, and well, he's going to be a little bit more concerned about the gap, because it stands at about 1.4 seconds between Pete Berryman and Sebastian Job, so that is very on the edge of the slipstream here. So Sebastian Job's going to have to rely on his clear air pace for the majority of the gap at this point, so we'll have to keep an eye on that one. He's still got time, 12.5 minutes left remaining in this session, and who knows what might happen at in the pack ahead as well. If they'll start strapping again, that means Sebastian Job can just gain easy time.
I think the pack ahead are playing it sensible and thinking, let's just keep going. We've got Lewis Goodway. We keep on seeing Lewis's car on screen, and not always for good reasons, but right there he's made moves and is up into 19th ahead of Lee McNish and also Craig Williams. Fraser Williams has dropped all the way down to the back of the field, so something's happened to Fraser out there.
Yeah, he's still running. We have had no retirements from this race just yet. Everyone is still out there circulating. It's just that some drivers are way towards the back of the field after maybe early lap incidents. So William Martin's down there, Fraser Williamson, like you mentioned, in dead last at the moment, P number 27, but still out there and circulating, and that is to be commended, because you never know what might happen in front of you. Someone might have a big retirement, maybe multiple cars will have a big crash, and you'll be able to gain those positions. But this is what happened to Fraser. Oh, too quick. Way too quick into Stone. The car swapped ends.
Yeah, that was an ambitious move, shall we say, and that means that he went a little bit too deep, back end swaps around, and because this is a rear-engined car, so the engine actually is over the rear wheels there, it means as soon as the back end starts swinging out, it acts like a pendulum, and just sends you swinging round. So that's the reason why that car then just went off. Here we go, Josh Thompson in his relaxed seating position. He's quite a tall driver, is Josh. I've actually been involved in a karting event with him. Didn't go too well for me, but he's quite a quick driver. But yeah, he's always had that quite reclined approach to his sim racing, and it seems to work for him.
It really does. You know, it's all about trying to optimize those little things that you can control to try and gain those tiny advantages, whether it be, you know, your fitness or even like you said, your seating position. You know, it's all about the comfort here for these drivers, and they have the advantage of having their sim rigs at home set up in the way that they like it. So it's absolutely perfect for them. But once we go back to live events, that is definitely not the case when they have to use someone else's rig to go racing, and that's an element of the adaptability once we get those going again. But here's a little battle deeper in the pack involving Isaac Price, and there was the number 57. Oh, made contact with him from
Jack
behind.
Sedgwick.
57 was Jack Sedgwick, yeah. Unfortunate there for Isaac Price.
Yeah, that was almost inevitable there into club, and the contact between him and Price just not leaving enough room for the inside car, and that meant that Isaac is the one who goes around. Very little that Jack could do there, really, in that one, because he still had his car alongside.
Oh, sorry, I just saw someone had a big slide. It's John Robertson, who was inside the top 10. He was running in P8. He had a big slide coming through Luffield. He didn't collect anyone in that. He did kind of scare Jack Sedgwick and Blair Mann behind, but no one else collected.
Yeah, he's, as you say, dropped to the back of the field. John Robertson, of course, who competed in the iRacing Rallycross Championship, was one of the championship contenders. In fact, led it for most of the season, but missed out in the final round. So he'll be looking to try and work his way through and try and get a good result in this championship. But yeah, little mistakes like that can cost you. But he's a young driver, he's still learning, and he's still developing as a competitor. But we're getting towards the closing stages here, and this pack of three seem to be working together for now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Graham Carroll has been gaining a couple of tenths a lap over the race leader of Kevin Ellis Jr. So they are making slow but steady progress, but whether or not it's enough for the end of the race, that is a different question entirely. There's a replay here involving Simeon Lynch, and I think that, yep, the back end's just come around there, and it's exactly what you described before, Paul, due to the rear-engine nature of these cars. As soon as you get a slide on, then it's just going to get worse from there.
Yeah, absolutely. He did the right thing, though. Locked up. I mean, his tyres won't thank him for that, but actually stopped the slide getting any worse. It meant that he got his car in a position where he could then recover and carry on driving. So he did all right there. Only lost down to 14th for Simeon. But, yeah, mistake that can be easily done. But we're back to this front battle, and the 3, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Yeah, I don't think they're gaining enough time. They need to be making more time than what they are on the race leader right now, and it's going to be a matter of time before Josh Thompson starts making some moves on Graham Carroll.
Yeah, I think so. I think Josh will leave this for another lap and a half at least to see if there's any big gains being made compared to the race leader, and then he'll decide, okay, I'm fed up of waiting now. I'm just going to go for the move for P2 because that's the only thing that's on at the moment. So Josh Thompson has a decision to make here about when and where he wants to try to challenge for Graham Carroll, because as soon as he does, P1's out the question. Yeah,
absolutely. It's where is that point of no return? And when do you reach it right then? Because it will cost them majorly. It will cost them half a second if they really battle between the two of them. Right now, they're staying as they are. 6.5 minutes remaining in this one, and it's still relatively close. I mean, look at the timing screen on the left-hand side there. You've got 10 seconds covering 1st to 12, less than 20 seconds covering down to 18th. So it shows the level of competition in this championship.
Yeah, everyone keeping themselves quite close together. We're riding on board with the driver of Josh Thompson at the moment with his roof cam. as he's basically had the rear bumper of Graham Carroll in his face throughout most of this race, as they all try to track down your race leader. They're not making too much progress, and this comes back to what you said a couple of moments ago, Paul, that they're not reeling in your race leader fast enough to be able to get this done and for any of them to have a chance at the race lead. I think at this point it's just about for P2.
Yeah, they're not getting that ground. There's about 3 laps remaining of this race. They need to be making like half seconds or more to be able to get to Kevin Ellis Jr. to be able to battle for that lead. They're not making that time. Yes, they were a tenth quicker on the last lap again, but being a tenth quicker isn't good enough in this one. So Josh Thompson, he doesn't want to go too early though, because then he leaves himself susceptible to being at the front of that gaggle of cars, and that will mean that the slipstream will come into effect. So he wants to keep his powder dry and wait for the opportunity. But here comes Sebastian Job, bit between his teeth. Look at that, last 2 laps, half a second quicker in 2 laps.
He also was the only driver on that last lap in the 204s. He did a 204.9. Your race leader, Kevin Ellis Jr., did a 205.3. So he's gone 0.4 of a second faster than even your race leader there. That's just how quick Sebastian Job is. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he's involved in this battle at the ahead of him. Pierre Berryman down the inside of Josh Thompson, though, going for the move into Stowe. Here comes the cutback, though, from Josh Thompson. Oh, he gets the speed on the inside, but he hasn't got the pass back done just yet. On the brakes into Vale, Berryman's committed, and Berryman's got him there. Josh Thompson looks for a line back, but to no avail, and Berryman leads up towards Club, and well, this has allowed Carroll to get away a little bit.
I was about to say exactly that. Carroll must be looking in his mirrors and rubbing his hands with delight at that move. Pete Berryman's decided to pull the trigger because he saw Sebastian Job coming up behind him. He decided to make that move on Josh Thompson. Don't expect Josh to go out without a fight, but here comes Sebastian Job to the back of them now, and all of a sudden they're, what, half a second off of Graham Carroll. So Carroll is going, and he is saying bye-bye.
There's a bit of a resurgence of speed from Carroll as well, because that gap now down to 1.1. I still don't think it's quite enough for Carroll to be able to challenge the race lead at the end of this, but anything can happen. You know, Ellis is certainly watching his relative time at the moment and seeing that gap come down. He can't afford to focus on that at this point, though, and he just needs to get that car to the checkered flag for his race win. But this is going to be a fantastic battle in the rest of this train, though, because Sebastian Job is well and truly locked onto the back of this now. Josh Thompson is the first target for him. It's been a fantastic recovery drive from Seb.
Look at that gap now, though. 0.9 of a second to Graham Carroll from Pete Berryman. So that one little move, and now going a little bit defensive, focusing on Josh Thompson behind, has cost them big, and it's cost them the potential of going for second place. Berryman felt that he was quicker than Josh Thompson, or else he wouldn't have made that move to try and go for Graham Carroll. But now look at it, the slipstream. They're trying to break the slipstream here, but it's not going to be to avail, and they're just, it's not quite working for them here. But Sebastian Job now putting the pressure on Josh Thompson.
He really is now looking to go onto the brakes into the Vale. And again, line astern, they remain. This will be the start of the final lap here. Kevin Ellis Jr. is the same sort of situation to race number 1. Crosses the line with about 2 minutes to go, and we got the checkered flag after that for race number 1. So this is 1 lap to go here. So just a couple of chances left for some of these drivers to get themselves up onto the podium, perhaps, or to scrap amongst, well, for Graham Carroll and Berryman to scrap amongst themselves. So for P2, as Berryman's been able to close the gap just a little bit here. So P2 might still be an option, but it requires an error, I think, for Graham Carroll for him to be filed back into this little pack here. But again, slipstream action all the way down the Wellington Straight, and the gaps have just all kind of increased in and amongst themselves. Even Sebastian Job is not going as quickly as he was.
Yeah, I think he's maybe looking at the bigger picture and thinking, I can make maybe 1 position, keep with them just in case that there is any sort of drama happen in front of him. But he's thinking that bigger picture, and this is what won him a championship last year. Think that bigger picture, get yourself some decent points, especially after such a poor start from Sebastian in the start of this race.
A little bit of a compromised line from Josh Thompson, just gives a little bit of time to Sebastian Job, and that is a time that's certainly going to matter, especially if Sebastian can get himself a good run through Maggots and Beckett and launch out of Trap Chapel to be able to make the move down into Stowe. That's going to be the plan for Sebastian Job as they come out of Chapel now down the hanger straight for the final time. You can see Graham Carroll, he's a very big fan of the flashy light button, but I don't think there's anything he can really do about Kevin Ellis Jr. in the race lead at the moment, try as he might, but the battle is still for P4 at the moment between Josh Thompson and Sebastian Job. Sebastian Job gesturing towards the inside, but I don't think he is quite close enough to be able to get that one done. But at the front, Kevin Ellis Jr. out of the final corner to win race 2 at Silverstone. Kevin Ellis Jr. gets it at the end. He looks pleased with himself. And a very well-deserved race win there for Kevin Ellis Jr. Graham Carroll, P2, Peter Berryman, P3.
Great performance from Kevin there. He got the job done early. I thought it was going to be Josh Thompson who maybe made that move at the start, but still, Kevin doing the job, getting out front, managing that lead, and did exactly what he needed to throughout this race.
He absolutely did. Josh Thompson ends up P4, Sebastian Job P5 as well, as we'll wait for the rest of the runners to head their way across the line, and we'll be able to pull up the results from race 2 here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup. Great Britain, Kevin Ellis Jr. wins by a second over Graham Carroll. Peter Berryman finishes in P3, Josh Thompson P4, and Sebastian Job. Fantastic recovery drive after a very, very poor start there for Seb. Down to P13 on the first lap, but able to recover up into P5. Another decent race for Jamie Fluke, finishing in P6. Blair Mann, similarly so for him, in P7. Jack Sedgwick up into P8 with John Robertson P9 and Jamie Moon in P10. That was the driver that started on your pole position for the reverse grid. Then you have a look back, you have, Nastel Zik. Unfortunately, our graphics are a little bit broken here, but Nastel Zik P11, Bart Horston P12, Simeon Lynch P13, Matt Emery P14, Isaac Price P15, Matthew Dorrington P16, Raphael Drage in P17, and Craig Williams in P18, Jordan Weeks in P19, and Lewis Goodway is the driver in P20. Then Kieran Harrison, P21, Liam McNitch in P22, Josh Webster, P23, Fraser Williamson, P24, Ryan Parkins, P25, and William Martin down in P26 here today. 0 retirements, Paul, from race 2.
Yeah, it's great to see that out there. We only had one retirement in race 1 as well, so good action, a good sized grid, and a really competitive grid as well out there on track. So hopefully we'll get to speak to our winners here and see how things went out there for them. But again, a great start to the year for Kevin Ellis Jr. Had such a positive 2020 and has really taken that form into this year, and he could be a dark horse for this championship, you know.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's been a fantastic weekend for Kevin Ellis Jr. Brilliant performance, of course, in the Super Cup yesterday, bringing that momentum for race 2 win here today in the Porsche Carrera, Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. It seems like he's really on a high at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, you're spot on there. On a high going into this year, and yeah, just things keep on getting better and better. Graham Carroll, good position though, second place in this one. He was, of course, third place. There's the donuts being done by Kevin out there on track. So he's really enjoying himself out there, and that Michelin rubber will be certainly feeling it after all those donuts. But yeah, definitely Kevin done a fantastic job out there, and he's quite rightly doing the old donuts there because he deserves that.
Yeah, and a very rare smile there from Kevin. We don't usually see it. Hopefully he'll be able to join us in the commentary booth in just a couple of moments for his interview after he's done celebrating with the donuts, which are very, very well deserved because it was a very, very strong race for him today. Got to the front in very quick fashion. He got both the passes he needed done in the first lap. That is just clinical.
Yeah, and I said, if you were that person wanted to make the move and try and get away, then that is when you needed to do that. Do that early, get yourself a bit of a gap, and then be able to just manage that gap at the front of the field.
Who else surprised you today?
Who else surprised me? I mean, it's not really a surprise to see Pete Berriman up there battling. He's a very, very capable driver and can focus himself solely on this, which may go into his benefit. Blair Mann, good second race there, finishing in the top 10. Certainly a good effort out there. I think Jamie Moon will be a little bit disappointed after getting 6th place in that first race to drop down to 10th in the second race, but I expect to see a little bit more from Jamie throughout this championship.
Yeah, and we might just have Kevin Ellis Jr. ready to speak to us, so I'll bring him into the commentary booth. Kevin, it seems like everything goes from good to even better here for you in Porsche racing in particular. It's a race 2 win for you here today. How are you feeling?
A little bit confused, I've got to be honest. Yeah, I definitely didn't see that coming into this weekend. Obviously, with the Carrera Esports Super Cup win yesterday, and then this today, it's been it's been a really surreal 24 hours. I've received a lot of messages from people. My team have been really, really supportive of everything. I really do owe everything to those guys. I mean, Pete was comfortably the quickest out of our group coming in today. I just rocked up this morning about an hour before the session opened and started trying to learn the setup and the conditions and everything. And without those guys, I couldn't achieve even half of this stuff. So yeah, a big thanks has to go to everyone at Apex Racing Team, RLL Esports, Rahal Letterman Lanigan as well. Just everyone involved in this effort. It's going to take a while to sink in, I think.
Just take me back to race 1, because you were involved in a lot of battling with Graham Carroll for, especially the opening portions of that race. You were able to get up into the podium positions, then Graham came back at you, and then you didn't quite have the edge for the rest of the race to be able to get back past. Do you know what the reason was for that? Is it just that you two were just so close in pace that it was impossible to get past? Yeah,
I think Graham was probably a little bit stronger coming in. I think Seb, Pete, and Graham, the three of them were comfortably quicker than I was. So in the sprint, I got a really good getaway. Had a bit of a scrap with Graham. We were 3 wide there going into turn 3, and I had to back out. And then I had another go and eventually got by Graham. And then after about a lap, I could see, Pete was really pulling away. And I just couldn't hold pace with those guys. And as I tried to kind of pick the pace up, I started overdriving a little bit. The surface is so slick here that I really struggled to get to grips with it. So then obviously Graham got past me, and after that I just decided to sit in line, try and prevent bringing the guys behind into the battle, and almost kind of learn a bit from Graham for the feature. And I just wanted to take the P4 and then I'd reverse back ahead of him for the feature, and then I'd actually try and apply what I'd learned, and got a little bit lucky there obviously with him fighting behind. But heat 1, it was more just trying to learn. I think Graham was a little bit stronger than I was, so I was content just to ride.
Yeah, take me to the start of that race too, though, because you made the 2 crucial moves on the first lap of the race, which was absolutely incredible. Was that the plan going in, to get them done as quickly as possible, or was there a longer term plan?
I was expecting it to be a few laps before I got to the front, if I ever did get there. The getaway in both races, I seemed to jump everyone by a car length at least. So yeah, I was a bit shocked to clear Josh by turn 1. Despite him being on the row ahead of me. So yeah, I got behind Jamie, and pretty soon I could tell that he wasn't quite up to the pace. So I tried to put a move on him around the outside into, I think it was turn 7. He just squeezed me out the line a little bit, which was all fair. And then eventually I got the move done down into the end of the hangar straight. So after that, I just tried to look forward, and obviously him and Josh and Graham and everyone else behind started battling, and that gave me a nice gap, pretty similar to what happened yesterday actually. And then from then on, it was just a case of managing the tyres in case Graham did happen to get to me. I had enough tyre left to try and hold him off until the finish, but thankfully the tyres kind of came to me near the end of the feature there of the second heat. I got a little bit more used to it, and things began to go a bit smoother, and Graham wasn't really closing at the rate I thought he would. So yeah, just to bring that home was a big surprise for sure.
Just a final question. Well, it's kind of a two-parter, but there's, of course, this being a British Championship, there's a lot of British racetracks on the calendar. Are those ones that you're comfortable with? And two, how do you fit this in around your Super Cup commitments?
So in terms of the schedule, I think Silverstone's probably one of my stronger tracks, but I've never raced. I think I've raced at Snetterton once, and that was for a Legends Championship I done last season. And then like Oulton Park and Donington and stuff like that, they're not tracks I'm very familiar with, so I'll probably need to step up my practice a little bit. Obviously, looking at the pace coming into today, I wasn't as strong as I kind of hoped I would have been. So I think I need to probably try and, as you say, fit in a little bit more practice around the Super Cup commitments, which would be tough, of course. The amount of time and effort that goes into that is really, really tough. And with the compact schedule this season, it doesn't make life any easier. And then, of course, I'm doing all the work for Apex Academy as well at the minute. So it's busy, but it's doable. I think we've got the team to do it. I've got the guys around me, and there's no excuses. I should be right up there every week.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Kevin. Congratulations on the Race 2 win, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks very much, guys.
There we go. That was Kevin Ellis Jr. Taking Race 2 win here, P4 in race number 1. So a very good points haul for Ellis there, Paul.
Yeah, tremendous performance from him, and certainly he'll be looking forward to the rest of this championship. And it's always best to get jumped into the car and to get going as soon as possible, because it keeps that momentum up and it keeps your performance at a high level. So he's done a fantastic job here today and thoroughly deserved that win there. He controlled that second race really well.
We have Josh Thompson ready and waiting as well, and Paul, take it away with him.
Yeah, Josh, welcome along to the commentary booth. Interesting opening round of this championship. Just talk us through that, because a couple of really, really good results for you today.
Yeah, to be honest, taking them results after what happened yesterday in the actual main Esports Super Cup, I was kind of happy with. Practice wasn't as good as probably I wanted it to be, because I was so focused on that for the first round. So if you told me I'd walk away with that after today, I'd take it. Like, I didn't even expect to be anywhere close, to be completely honest. After seeing how fast Sebi and Kevin and stuff were in the pre-queue here, I was not as strong. So yeah, overall, I'm pretty chuffed with that.
But, of course, getting yourself 5th place in that first race gave you a front row starting position. Not the best of launches, I must say, off of the start line. You would have hoped for a better run than that, but it still meant that you were 3rd in the early going. Ended up in 4th. I mean, is that maybe something you're needing to work on, just getting the launch of the car away from the line?
Yeah, I don't know. Race 1, the actual launch wasn't too bad. I got jumped by Harrison and Isaac, I think, but it wasn't horrific. But race 2, yeah, really, I was completely caught out by how good the start was from Kevin. Like, I didn't expect that at all. So I think there was a few settings I could have changed, I think, with the clutch, but I wanted to go safe. I tried it in the warm-up, and I just had no launch. I think Sebi had a bad start in race 2.
Yeah.
So I tried lowering the clutch settings, and it wasn't ideal. So I just kept with what I knew. If I dropped back, I dropped back. At least I knew I was going to get off the line, which is the main thing. Unfortunately, the hard work was the plan was to try and get past Jamie before Kevin could. And yeah, Kevin decided to get both of us on the first lap, which was unfortunate. And by then, the win was almost there. Got it down a little bit with Graham at the end, but I think Graham made a mistake in turn 2 with a lock-up, and it cost all the time we made up.
And of course, this season then we're heading to Oulton Park, my personal favourite track out there in the world of motorsport, but it's going to be very tricky to overtake there, isn't it?
Oh yeah, Q's going to be 100% there. Here wasn't too bad, obviously. There's a lot of overtaking opportunities. Oulton is going to be so tight and twisty. It's all going to be about getting that perfect lap in qualifying. I think there will still be the odd overtake here or there. I think you can still get away in the final corner of a dive, but it's going to be so Q dependent, and that's something I need to work on. I struggled yesterday. I struggled today. I didn't really hook the lap up what I could have. So yeah, big push on mainly just getting that one lap in and qualifying next week.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Josh, and congratulations on the 5th and the 4th places in the end.
Thank you.
Well, that was Josh Thompson there. After a couple of decent results here today. P5 race 1, P4 race number 2. Strong performance there for Josh Thompson to start off his season. It's important to have that baseline you can build up off of at the very start of the season, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get off on a strong footing on a championship like this. It's a long championship, but not too long. So you have to make the most of your opportunities when they arrive to you. And next week, Alton Park, as we alluded to there, it is quite a narrow track there. Overtaking is difficult. You can make the overtakes, but it's more about putting pressure on your opponents and forcing a mistake. Well, at this level, we saw here today at Silverstone, mistakes are few and far between, so definitely, as Josh said, qualifying is going to be so key around Alton Park, and keeping out of incidents is going to be one of the main issues there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to that one, but that is all that we're going to have time for here this afternoon. You've been watching the first round of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. Fantastic race wins from both Sebastian Job and Kevin Ellis Jr. to start off their seasons on the right foot. In exactly a week's time, we head to Alton Park, so make sure to join us for that. But for now, thank you and bye-bye.